Good morning, world.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Brian. Cedric and Brian. I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian. And this is Cedric and Brian. Welcome back, everybody. As you can see, we're not in our normal patriotic t-shirts. Cedric wanted to play dress up, so I went along. Cedric, why did we want to play dress up?
That sounded weird.
We're actually doing an episode on, I believe her name is Barbara Broccoli.
Yes.
She's been the producer. She took it over, I think, from her father for James Bond. And we're going to discuss the direction that she's going to go in that.
Yes. Now, a lot of you don't know this, but Brian and I were actually considered to take over the role of James Bond. But there was one problem. We're not clean shaven. They said you guys should shave. I was like, well, we should. And that's a good reason for you guys to buy Jeremy's razor.
That's right. Jeremy's razors. Go to this link or go in the description and please buy yourself a set of Jeremy's razors or sign up for the Daily Wire to help us win this cool car right here.
Ooh, only a Bond car that would be suitable for us to drive around in solving crimes.
That's right. I know you guys are catching me without my hat on. That's a rarity.
Got a good haircut.
Yeah, I know. I finally went and actually had somebody else do it other than myself.
Right.
She trimmed my beard, too, so I don't look like I just hop out of a honky-tonk in Tennessee.
Oh, yes. Can I say honky-tonk?
You can say. I give you permission to say honky-tonk.
Honky-tonk.
I notice you have a martini.
Yes, it is
shaken, not stirred.
Shaken, not stirred.
I'm still a whiskey guy. Got my old-fashioned here.
I'm going to put this down here.
Just don't knock it over. No, don't let your elbows hit it.
I won't. Okay. All right, so what are we talking about today? We're talking about Bond.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about this because it's kind of a trend in Hollywood and kind of in society in general, where they're kind of taking away the alpha male. The alpha male now is somehow the bad guy, which is funny because the reason we have our freedoms in this country and in England is for the alpha males that are actually out there protecting freedom. James Bond was the ultimate alpha male. Mm-hmm. He would go out there and he was a single guy. He would get all the good-looking girls. I mean, go all the way back to the 60s up to now. And us guys, us normal guys, we would live lives vicariously through this guy who was different from the rest of us. Right. He didn't have to abide by the rules. He didn't have the family. And now this producer, she's going in a new direction, and the last James Bond with Daniel Craig, they kind of made him more of the family man. So you could tell they were kind of going in that direction to begin with. But that's, in my opinion, that's not what we want from a James Bond.
No, you want him to have, and I know it's a buzzword used today, you want him to have some toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
You want him to get out there and be able to solve problems, and if he needs to kick butt and take names later, then so be it.
Because he's saving the world from actual bad guys. You got to be a bad guy yourself to save the world from bad guys.
Absolutely.
I'm reading a book right now. It's the by Brad Thor. It's the Scott Harbass series, and he is an ex-Navy SEAL who was on the badass Navy SEAL team.
The baddest of the bad guys.
Then he worked security for the president in this novel. But he's a guy who knows that he has to live outside the rules. He can't really have a long-term relationship because he's called at a moment's notice to do things like a James Bond who has to leave and do what he needs to do.
Let me say something real quick.
Go ahead.
Because I know someone's going to say it in the comments section. Yes, we realize that James Bond is a fictional character. We understand that.
But they're both based on real life things. Both right. The Scott Harbass series, James Bond. They're these guys that work for the government or outside of the government because they have this internal desire to do the right thing. Not the bureaucratic thing, but the right thing.
Absolutely.
And they have to color outside the lines. They can't be the sensitive, simpy, stay inside the line family guy.
Right.
No, Cedric and I, we're family guys. We love, and if you saw our last episode with Adam Calhoun, we like what we chose in our life. We liked having the family, that feeling you have when you have your first child. But that's not what we're watching James Bond for.
No. No, guys like James Bond, and then you have Jason Bourne, Ethan Hawke, and of course, Maxwell Smart. I mean, he was the guys. Come on, seriously, wasn't Maxwell Smart the greatest? What's your favorite James Bond movie?
Oh my gosh.
Do you have one? I know there's a lot.
I think, and I can't remember the name of it, but the first Daniel Craig movie.
Okay.
With James Bond, I really like that one, and I know it's not one of the classics, but I think his first role. Did you see that one? Live or Let Die or something.
Live or Let Die. Yeah, Live or Let Live.
I can't remember.
Yes.
Remember they had him strapped in that chair naked?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
So you can't have a soft guy play that part.
I don't know. I kind of lean toward Octopussy.
You just like the name.
I think it's a good movie. I don't know what you're talking about. But
I just like all of the women that they have in that. Thank God, at least up to this point, they haven't gone into the body positivity thing with the James Bond women. I mean, they're smart, they're sexy, they're gorgeous, and they play and they're perfect for the role. We don't want anything else but that.
Imagine Lizzo being the leading lady in a James Bond movie. That would be terrible. And, and this kind of piggybacks. I think it was last week or maybe a week and a half ago. And again, I don't care because I know it's a fictional character. But the Little Mermaid is now black, and I know it kind of correlates with this a little bit. But I know it's a fictional character. I know James Bond is a character, but they represent something. And let's be clear, so I don't get called a sellout or a coon. I don't care that the Little Mermaid is black.
No.
It's a little far-fetched to me because black people don't swim. And,
wow,
and if she gets her hair wet, that's a totally different situation altogether. You know, I'm just keeping it real.
Well, did you hear what happened? Matt Walsh got in trouble.
Again?
Because he said that the Little Mermaid, if they live that far under the sea, they should really be translucent because the animals that live that far under the sea shouldn't be white or black. They should be translucent where you see their bones and they should look hideous.
I agree.
He got called a racist for that.
You gotta love what Matt says. But we're seeing this, not just this movie, but it's been happening for a few years now where they're trying to emasculate men. They're saying that we don't want you to be toxic. We don't want you to be rough and rugged. We need someone who's more sensitive. It was, what's his name? Who was the host of the singing show that everybody watched? He fought with Simon Cowell all the time. Who was the host? I know you guys are yelling at me again. He fought with Simon and Randy.
Fought with Simon and Randy?
He was the host. They fought playfully.
You mean Ryan Seacrest?
Ryan Seacrest. I think he was among the first of the metrosexual men.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a man who clings his fingernails and stays well dressed and well groomed.
And for his part, that fit. You don't need a James Bond to host a singing show.
Right.
You know, I mean, you have certain parts, and our whole take on this episode isn't that there's not, that you can have these different, like I said, we're family men. We're Navy SEALs. We're not James Bond characters. But that is a character, you should keep it the same. If you want a 006 spin-off and make him more of the sensitive guy, do that. But don't make 007 a different guy.
And we've always said that. A couple months ago, we did the episode on our superheroes when Superman or a derivative of Superman was now gay. It's like, you know what? If you want to do that, that's fine. But stop taking the heroes that we've grown up with and switching them around. Create a knockoff. Create a spinoff, like you said, a 006 or 002.5 or something like that.
Yeah, that's all we're saying. And didn't you found a Jordan Peterson clip that kind of addressed this, right?
Everyone's seen this. We're going to show it to you in its entirety without some of the cinematic effects that other people have thrown into it. But Jordan Peterson, as he so often does, he hits nail on the head.
We've met some of your fans, and we got the impression they were all male fans, the ones that we talked to, and that they were struggling with their manhood, and that you give them this message that it's okay to be a man.
It's not okay. It's necessary.
So you can already hear his voice breaking. So it's funny because when we talk about being a man and like a manly man, it doesn't mean that you don't have emotions.
Right.
Jordan Peterson, if you watch any of his, he almost breaks down on every single one of them. He's a very emotional guy, but he still teaches from the aspect of let's have some respect for things that mainly men do.
Exactly.
What the hell are we going to do without men? You look around the city here, you see all these buildings go up, these men, they're doing impossible things, they're under the streets. working on the sewers. They're up on the power lines in the storms and the rain. They're keeping this impossible infrastructure functioning, this thing that works in a miraculous manner. They work themselves to death, and often literally, and the gratitude for that is sorely lacking, especially among the people who should be most grateful. You see university professors, especially of the social justice bent, who are among the most protected and privileged people that the world has ever produced. They take everything they have for granted, failing to understand entirely that there's a massive infrastructure of unbelievably hardworking, solidly laboring, working class men breaking themselves in half on a regular basis, making sure that everything that always breaks works. And so a little gratitude for that is in order. And it's very useful to tell everyone, not just men, that they have an important role to play, a necessary role, and that if they act properly and honestly and forthrightly, that they can put their lives together and they can help their families and they can make their communities better, and that's not toxic masculinity, that appalling phrase. It's what keeps the world going round. And if we had any sense, we'd understand that, instead of doing everything at every possible moment to label what we have in the West as oppressive and patriarchal and fundamentally predicated on power, of all the insane propositions.
So what he says there is so important, because they accuse the West in the United States, Canada, but the West in general. He's in I think he's in the Netherlands or something for this interview. They label the West, which is basically invented from the Greeks, democracy. Mm-hmm. We got rid of monarchies for the most part in the West. I mean, we have figureheads like obviously the Queen who just passed,
yes,
but she doesn't have, the Queen and now the new King, they don't have the power on top to tell everybody what to do. We've pretty much gotten rid of that, but there's still civilizations and still societies that are top-down rule with the man at the top, the king,
right,
who makes his subjects do what they want to do. And yet we're called out in the West all the time for toxic masculinity, the patriarchy, like he said, and there's no gratitude for what has come from the societies that we've built over the last, hundreds of years.
Yeah, exactly. And we've put men down. We've talked about this before, where we've seen men in our TV shows. You look at your Mike Brady's and your Heathcliff Huxtables and Father Knows Best. And I'm separating Heathcliff Huxtable from Bill Cosby, the character Heathcliff Huxtable, fathers who went out and worked and toiled and labored for their families, and then that slowly slipped into the Homer Simpsons and the Al Bundys and things of that nature. Family Guy, giggity. We've watched it.
And we're not saying, and I know there's people screaming at that, and we're not saying anything about the role of women and women who work in the workplace. But the lack of gratitude that he's talking about for men who actually do jobs, they're still digging ditches, they're still working in the coal mines that are still there. For the vast majority, those types of jobs are still held by men for the majority.
Yes.
Because it's just what it is. Now in the future, maybe because of technology, things will shift out and you won't need that type of labor as much. But that doesn't mean, like we talked about James Bond, that you need to get rid of the masculine man, the man who's willing to paint outside the lines, but yet still come, if he's a family man, take care of his family.
Right. And I think a man can be sensitive. One of my favorite shows, and I kind of got you guys to watch it.
Remember a couple episodes, you kind of cried a little bit.
Wow. Nothing wrong with a man crying every now and then.
That.
Yeah, whatever. I love the character Rip in Yellowstone. You talk about a man's man.
Yeah.
He's out there toiling with his hands, getting calluses, but at the same time, he is going to protect his family.
But he's a bad man.
He is a
He'll
bad
take
man.
you to the train station.
Yes, hush your mouth. And I think that the men should be like that. Men should be strong.
Are you
they
going to
should
really
be,
mention him without mentioning Beth?
Well, this isn't about women, but Beth is. She's a bad mamma jamma. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but she's a very fictional character.
She's a very fictional character. But I think all women, all men should be like Beth when they look at people and say, "You're the trailer park. I'm the tornado." I love that statement from her. But when a man goes out there and he's not only strong physically, but you can be strong emotionally, like Brian said when we began, that doesn't mean that you don't cry. It doesn't mean that you don't show emotion, that there's a time and a place for that. But I think what we need to talk about is character and integrity. That's what gives a man strength. He wants to protect his family. He wants to promote his family. He wants to be there for his family. And I don't know what this new James Bond is going to be like. I don't know if he's going to...
It's in the works. So I've read this article, and I'll put the article in the link below. It's a work in progress, but the way she is hinting it is that she's making him much more of a family man, much more sensitive. And again, that's okay for other roles, but that's not what James Bond is. James Bond's always been the elegant guy, but the elegant guy that can get it done.
Right.
And he's not the family guy. He's the guy that you want to go see get the really good-looking spy from Russia or wherever, and then double-cross her at the end after he's already had sex with her, of course.
No, they just held hands. Jeez.
And I know what people say, oh, he just used her. No, they used each other. Wow. They were both trying to get something out of the other one. Right? Come on, those Russian spies,
Right.
Wherever they were from, I'm going back in the day when all those James Bonds were based on some Russian type of...
Right. But he portrayed that, like you said, he portrayed that man's man, taking care of the villain, but at the same time, capturing the glorious-looking woman.
But he was a nice-dressed man,
Yes.
too,
Right. Did you put up the picture, the side-by-side of me and Idris Elba? Because he was in the running for it.
Yeah, he was smart to get out of it, because
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to ruin 007, the character.
Yeah, because whoever takes this role has to be in it for, 10 years? Or
Yeah, she wants like a 10 to 15-year commitment. And Idris is already in his 50s or at 50, so he knows, you know what, if they want somebody for 15 years, I don't want to be a 65-year-old James Bond.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So look for a younger guy. Like Daniel Craig, when he started it, he was still older, but he was in his 40s, I think, or late 30s.
Yes.
So that gave him a good run.
Yeah.
But
But
I think I don't know if you've watched any of the Idris Elba stuff, but he plays a good part, and he's a classy guy who can paint outside the lines.
Yes.
So it's a good thing he didn't do it, because they would try to tame him in, which we don't want to see.
And he was
that.
one of People Magazine's sexiest men of the year, I think, 2 years ago.
Is that why you want me to put your picture next to him?
I mean, I think there's some similarities. I'm just saying. But Brian was talking about earlier, the producer, Barbara Broccoli, and there's a co-producer, Michael Wilson. Broccoli made this statement. She said, Bond is evolving just as men are evolving.
No, they're devolving.
And
men.
she said, I don't know who's evolving at a faster pace.
pace, yeah.
But when you talk about those terms evolving or being progressive, and you start looking at the words that the left uses, like those three words, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We don't care about any of that. We don't care what Bond looks like. We don't care what his social justice fight is. It's like, just be a man who's going to protect us and who's going to fight.
And then one of the lines I saw in there is she heads up something that has to do with an intersectional. So as soon as I saw that word intersectional, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to ruin the franchise of James Bond, and it's a damn shame.
It's a damn shame.
But again, we have to be careful when, like Jordan Peterson said, when we throw these terms like toxic masculinity out. Who's going to fight the wars out there? Who's going to get down in the foxholes? 99% of the time, it's men, and we can't forget that. Otherwise, we lose our society. That kind of piggybacks. There's a new movie out called The Woman King?
Yes.
So I wanted to look into that because, how true is it? So again, it's based on stuff in the past, true, real life things that happen. But the real life things that happen, that these women, these Amazon warriors, were kind of kept as slaves by the kings of these tribes. So the reason they had, you know why they had to train them? Is because they were killing each other off so much that they were running out of men. So they had to train these women, and that's why they did it. But everybody knows, and I go back to this, Andrew Klavan, and I know he gets a lot of hate for this. If you put your strongest female warrior against your strongest male warrior, only in Hollywood would it be a close fight.
Right.
I'm sorry. It's just like the reason why you don't have MMA fighters fighting men and women together. Even the one who claims to be a woman is kicking the bejesus out of the actual women. So there is reality, toxic masculinity. They built a lot of what we have today and the reason we have our freedoms. And I'm sorry if that sounds male chauvinistic. I don't mean it to. I think we wouldn't do that. That's not us. I'm talking about in generalities. Okay? Obviously, there's MMA female fighters that would kick our old asses. But that doesn't mean, as a general rule, we have to be thankful for these people that we call, that have toxic masculinity. And we have to be thankful for the people that the James Bond represents.
Absolutely. Yes. I disagree. I could hold my own against an MMA fighter.
Okay. Challenge, please. Please, any MMA fighter that watches this, I'll film it. Get in the ring with him.
I can hold my own.
But just don't hit him in the face, because I need him for on-camera work afterwards.
Right.
Just get him in a hold in 2 seconds and make him say,
tap out.
"Mommy."
Tap. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about coming up with a new James Bond, a new, improved, more sensitive James Bond? Or should we have the old school James Bond, very similar to the James Bonds and the Jason Bournes and the Ethan Hunts and the old style spies that we grew up and accustomed to? Do you think we should make them more sensitive or keep them the way they were? Did you want to add anything else to that?
Nope. My vote is don't. I think they're already going to ruin it. So I think the James Bond franchise may be done. So we just have to move on. At least we have the Jason Bourne series. Hopefully that continues.
Oh, they won't touch that. All right, let's end this up here. Let me get my martini glass so I can toast you guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell, and continue sharing our channel with everyone you know. Until next time, I'm Cedric.
I'm Brian.